Well, there's been a lot over the last few years. I became aware of the fact that a lot of individuals are out there and trying to recreate the amp that I used for the Appetite for Destruction sessions. And I mean, I knew there were a lot of people fascinated about that sound and talking about it, and it becomes sort of an iconic sound that people were talking about. But the fact that people were actually studying the history and trying to figure out exactly what amp it was, what year it was built, what the mod was, all that kind of stuff, and to the point where when I was doing the last Velvet Revolver record, somebody who had the most extensive amount of information had this whole detailed blog talking about everything having to do with that amp. Everybody used it, everybody who worked on it, everywhere it was ever, the history of every place it ever was at, whatever. He actually had built one and sent it to me. And so from that point, I started thinking, what would be cool is just to actually build with Marshall. It's the Marshall amp, and have Marshall build one. And I just finally decided that at this point, after having started working on my solo record, and I wanted to do a Gibson Les Paul using the exact, a replica of the exact same guitar that I used for the session. Also to make an amp and sort of in its own way give back to all these very loyal fans over the years that have been so passionate about that particular sound. And so that's probably what inspired me, really. I figured, people can, it's a lot of fun. It's a great project to sit around and try and put together something and sort of that you have in your mind, and see what you come up with. But I figure we should really go to the source in order to recreate that amp. I mean, I actually found out the history of the amp really by listening to what everybody else was saying. And I remember when I was down at the studio and I was talking to, I always forget his name. Santiago, yeah. And we were talking, and I had it in my head that it was an old JCM 800. I didn't know it was a 59 Super Lead. And I was like, really? And then I had to really think about it. And I was like, oh yeah, it did have the small letters on it. Anyway, so I'm really excited. I'm probably as excited to hear this as anybody out there is. That's why I keep bugging. How's it going?
That's cool.
But when we listen to the tracks, the solo tracks off of the Appetite record, I always knew that it had there were certain characteristics to the sound of that amp from listening to the record, but after all these years to listen to the solo tracks, it's a really unique kind of a sound. And I definitely can identify what it is about the sound that makes it unique. It's just a matter of trying to build it. The guitar sound is the same throughout the whole album. It was the only amp that I used, but the Nightrain sound, that particular song was just very indicative of the clarity of the nuances of that sound. I could have gone to, obviously there's that Welcome to the Jungle stuff that we got.
We've now got, as I was going to mention, yes, we've now got that one. So Santiago's got both of the tracks.
So that has a it's in there, and you can find it in Paradise City and Sweet Charming on the whole record. But I think Nightrain is just a great wide open rock and roll song that it just, the guitar solo in that song is extended, and you just really can hear there's a certain kind of overdrive with the sound that actually sounds like as distorted as if you'd put a distortion pedal on it, and then it's got this really interesting mid-rangey kind of sound on top of it, and it gives it a real sort of interesting, when you mute the notes, has a really unique kind of sound, and it's weird because it's very, very compressed. It's not compressed in the track, it's not compressed at the board or by some effect. It's something that's in the amp. Yeah. I think between those two amps, if that sound could be duplicated, that's enough information in those two songs. I say amps and songs. This is just a really cool, sort of one of a kind at this point project. You look at the whole thing. It's actually it's something that probably would have been as interesting at any point in time, but it seems to sort of be a sign of the time. There's a lot of interaction going on, at least with myself and fans, because of all this sort of social networking and stuff that's going on.
I think you do a lot with Twitter.
And you can really find out what fans are thinking and what interests them, or you can update them and this and that and the other. And so in working on this amp in a sort of public forum gives them a chance to really sort of watch it step by step and be a part of it, which is cool.